Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if the Yondaimi's signature Just You, the Flying Thunder God, was really a hidden bloodline part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto stood in front of the grave that his clones had dug out for Zabuza and his accomplices. 4 side-by-side graves with Zabuza's massive sword marking the area. He reached into his pocket activating his seals and causing his Fuinjutsu scroll to poof into his hand. He unsealed his inkwell and calligraphy brush. He walked forward and started drawing seals on the sword and the area surrounding the graves. Once it was all done he stepped back to admire his work. Preservation. Fuin, he called. The seals all glowed before swirling around until they converged in a single point in the center of the graves, forming a small mark on the ground similar to a scorch mark. He wiped away a single tear before turning away and disappearing in his usual flash of red. On the bridge, "Where is the Dobi?" screamed out Sakura, causing everyone present to flinch, and the whole population of Wave was there, which was quite the achievement for the Pinkett Banshee. Suddenly Naruto appeared next to Hinata in his now signature flash of red. "Sorry I'm late everyone, I needed to do something really quick," said Naruto sheepishly while scratching the back of his head. His team smiled. When it was a serious moment he was all business, but when there was no apparent danger he reverted to the attitude of a child. "Ah, good, now that everyone is here we can get going," said Kakashi, smiling. He had cut in to prevent his team from starting a shouting match with Naruto. He was still confused about Naruto. He was almost completely certain that he was his sensei's son now. Now that he had gotten to know Naruto, he could see the similarities between him and his parents, being like Kushina when he didn't need to be serious and like Minato in battle. Although if he was honest with himself he would have never noticed if Naruto hadn't let his bloodline show. Inari came forward holding back tears. "Please promise you'll come visit soon, Naruto-Nisan," he said while trying his hardest not to cry. "Hey, it's alright to cry in a time like this. Just remember to grow strong so that you can protect all that is precious to you. And I will definitely come visit you soon," said Naruto with conviction. "Alright kids, let's head out. If we run we'll be home by lunchtime. Naruto, can you run ahead and alert Hokage-sama that we will be arriving soon and then come back and meet up with us?" said Kurenai. Kakashi looked like he was about to say something so that Naruto would stay so he could talk, but he was too late as Naruto had already nodded and ran off. He sighed in defeat before heading out himself, the rest of the Konoha ninja following behind. As Naruto ran he pushed his Futen chakra to the limit. At the speed he was traveling it would take a very experienced ninja or someone with a fully matured Sharingan to follow his movements. Once the gates were visible he straight away realized a major problem. At the speed he was traveling he wouldn't stop in time to check in at the guard station. Thinking quickly he performed a few hand seals. "Futen. Gale Wind Palm," he called as he aimed his palm at his feet. The resulting blast of air sent him flying straight up. Once he was up high he used a burst of wind chakra to slow his descent and push him to the guard booth. Landing gently he signed in at the booth and waved to Kotetsu and Izumo before darting to the Hokage's office at normal speeds. No use showing the villagers what he could really do. "Hey Gigi, Kurenai-sensei sent me ahead to tell you that Team 7 and 8 will arrive sometime around lunch," said Naruto as he walked into the Hokage's office. "Ah Naruto, good to see you. Did you make any progress with replicating your father's seals?" questioned the old man. Naruto smiled before pulling a tag out of one of his pockets and slapping it onto the Hokage's desk. He smirked before disappearing in a red flash, returning a second later with a small flower. "I finally figured out the seal and placed a couple in places in Wave. I overlaid the tags with a preservation seal as well," said Naruto, proud of his accomplishments. "Now if you'll excuse me I need to tell Kurenai-sensei that I made it here safely," said Naruto as he put the flower between his teeth and flashed out again. Hinata jumped slightly when Naruto appeared next to her, passing her the flower before the others looked to him. He winked at her under his hood before taking it off to smile to everyone. Gigi knows that we're coming, said Naruto, still smiling like an idiot. Thank you, Naruto. If you want, you can head back to Konoha now, thanked Kurenai. Naruto smiled before shaking his head. It's fun walking with you guys, said Naruto. Baka, we're sprinting as fast as we can, screamed Sakura. Naruto smiled sheepishly. Sorry, sometimes I forget how fast my normal speed is, and FYI my team is moving at a steady jog compared to their full speed, said Naruto, going from his childish attitude to battle mode in an instant. Naruto started moving along next to Hinata. Hey Hinata-chan, turn on your Byakugan and look at my feet, whispered Naruto. Hinata complied with his wish and focused her Byakugan to his feet. What she saw shocked her. He wasn't touching the trees. Every time it looked like he was going to land on a branch, he would send a jet of Fuden chakra out of his foot, creating a platform that he could step on instead, effectively flying along instead of running. Naruto-kun, how are you doing that? You're flying, whispered Hinata, trying to avoid the others noticing. Nah, not really. If I was flying, I would need to control the wind around me constantly, and I don't have the control to do that while holding myself in the air. This is just applying the tree climbing theory with Fuden training. Naruto smiled, still talking in a whisper. They continued on towards Konoha, Naruto and Hinata chatting the whole way. Kakashi was watching Naruto to find a time to talk to him but couldn't find a time. Kurenai was talking with Shino about the possibilities of using genjutsu to hide his bugs in a battle. And Team 7 were so tired and concentrating on where they were jumping to talk. Once the gates were in view, Naruto turned to his sensei. Hey Kurenai-sensei, I should probably flash into the Hokage's office. It might get confusing trying to explain why I'm coming into Konoha a second time without leaving. Kurenai nodded and Naruto flashed away to the Hokage's office. Upon arrival in the Hokage's office, Sarutobi fumbled for a second before putting his little orange book away. Gigi, you shouldn't read that kind of thing when there are children around, Naruto admonished his grandfather figure. Sarutobi smiled before poking his tongue out at Naruto and started smoking his pipe. A few minutes later, the rest of the ninja from the wave mission turned up. Ah, good to see you all. Now Kakashi and Kurenai, you can stay. The rest of you can go, smiled the Hokage. Naruto cheered and darted off. The rest of the genin sweat dropped before following him out. The Hokage's smile vanished as he looked at the Jonin before him. Now report, ordered the Hokage. Kakashi and Kurenai went on to report what had happened in Wave. When they were done, Kakashi asked a question. Hokage-sama, why didn't you tell me Sensei's son was still alive? Kurenai looked confused. Kakashi was trained by the Yondaime, but he didn't have a child. The son of the Yellow Florida Ash, thought Kurenai. Oh Kami, Naruto is the son of the Honorable Fourth, exclaimed Kurenai. Sarutobi glared at Kakashi. Thank you, Kakashi. Naruto didn't want anyone to know until he made Chunin, and you go and blurt it out without asking if Kurenai knew yet. Well, seeing as the secret is out, I may as well say that Naruto is the clan heir to the once great Namikaze and Uzumaki clans, inheriting the Namikaze bloodline and apparently the Uzumaki bloodline as well, according to Kurenai, explained the Hokage. Kurenai just stared dumbstruck. The Hokage sighed. It was going to be a long night. A week later, Team 8 was standing in their usual training ground, waiting for Kurenai to show up. Naruto and Hinata were lying down side by side holding hands. When in public they acted like friends and teammates, but when in the privacy of their team meetings and anything where their team were the only ones present, they openly acted like a couple. Shino had guessed it after seeing how they had acted in Wave, and Kurenai had already known somehow. They weren't ready to go public with their relationship. Hinata's father would destroy Naruto. Naruto didn't want to face an enraged Hiashi Hyuga. Heck, he didn't want to fight Hiashi Hyuga at all. So they kept it a secret to all but their team and the Hokage, but the Hokage seemed to know everything going on in the village anyway. After the Hokage had explained Naruto's heritage to Kurenai, she had talked to Naruto and he had told his teammates. They didn't care who his parents were, it didn't change the Naruto they knew. He had smiled when Shino had said that, and blushed when Hinata had kissed him on the cheek. After waiting for a few minutes, Kurenai walked into the training ground. Good, you're all here. I am entering you three in the Chunin exams. I think you are ready to try and advance, and even if you don't get promoted, this will still be a great learning experience. Explained Kurenai brightly, although inside she in turmoil. She knew her team was ready, but she thought it was too early for them to enter the exams, but with the exams being held in Konoha this time round, they would have the highest chance of making it to the finals and have a better chance at promotion. She handed each genin a form before saying, "Now you don't need to take the exam, I won't mind if you back out. Just show up at the academy at room 301 in a week's time, okay?" Her team nodded before going off to think. She knew they would all enter anyway. Naruto was too headstrong not to, and Hinata always gained more confidence when Naruto was around. Shino knew his capabilities and he was around Chunin level anyway, so his own logic would drive him to participate. She smiled lightly and walked away, happy that her team had the highest chance of promotion out of the rookie groups. Kakashi hadn't taught his team enough for them to be proper contenders, except maybe Kiba with his clan training, but he was too brash to think anything through anyway, so he wouldn't last long. Team 10 had a high chance of passing to, but that was because their team format was a tried and tested team arrangement. The Ino Shika Cho trio were devastating together, and hopefully their children was just as good, but their individual habits made their chance at promotion go down a bit as well. She shrugged before heading home for some well-deserved Ika time with Naruto and Hinata. As Naruto and Hinata were walking down the street, a box with eye holes that had been painted like a rock. Hinata giggled and Naruto sighed. "Konohamaru, rocks aren't square, how many times do I need to tell you?" "Hey, you're good boss, just what I expect from my rival," called out Konohamaru as the box exploded into smoke. 3 different sets of coughing were heard. "Udon, you used too much cough gunpowder," called out a female voice. When the smoke cleared, it revealed 3 small kids wearing trench coats that looked a lot like Naruto's. "Who are these cuties, Naruto-kun?" questioned Hinata. "Hi, I'm Moegi, the sassiest kunoichi in the academy," called out the girl. "I'm Udon, I like math," said a boy wearing glasses with a large glob hanging from his nose. "And I'm Konohamaru, the future Hokage," yelled out Konohamaru. "Hey boss, you promised to play ninja with us," pouted Konohamaru. Hinata giggled. "A ninja who plays ninja? That's so adorable, Naruto-kun." Hinata giggled out. "Hey boss, is she your, started Konohamaru, wiggling his pinky finger, girlfriend?" "Yes she is, but keep quiet, it's a secret, her father would kick my ass if he knew," whispered Naruto. A cheeky grin spread its way across Konohamaru's face. "Wow boss, you are such a wimp. How hard could it be to face an old man?" teased Konohamaru, completely disregarding his failed assassination attempts on his grandfather. A deathly aura surrounded Naruto as he cracked his knuckles and took a step forward. Konohamaru, seeing the aura, turned and sprinted away laughing. Naruto gave chase until Konohamaru ran around a corner and a loud thud was heard. Naruto and Hinata raced around the corner to see Konohamaru lifted off the ground by his shirt. "Apologize now, Gaki, or I'll have to teach you a lesson," threatened the strange boy in a cat suit. "Kankuro, put the kid down, we haven't even started the exams and you're causing us trouble," stated a blonde girl behind Kankuro. "Don't worry, Tamari. It's just one punk kid. No one will miss him," said Kankuro. "I think his grandfather might. The Hokage may be old, but he remembers his grandson just fine," called out Naruto in his serious mode. Kankuro dropped Konohamaru like he was made of acid. The boy ran and hid behind Hinata. "Now if you two and your teammate in the tree don't want to be kicked out of the exams, then you should go back to your hotel." The two Suna genin tensed when he said teammate, they turned to see Gaara hanging upside down in a tree off to the side of the road. "Kankuro, you are a disgrace to our village. Step out of line again and I'll kill you," said Gaara in a monotone. Kankuro and Tamari nodded before Gaara appeared next to them in a sand body flicker. They started to walk away before Gaara turned around. "Who are you?" he questioned Naruto. "Isn't it polite to give your own name first?" replied Naruto. "I am Gaara of the desert," he drawled. "Boring. I am Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage of Konoha," yelled Naruto, switching back to childish. "Mother will enjoy your blood," stated Gaara with some form of sick satisfaction. And with that, the Suna team walked off. Naruto turned to Hinata and made a crazy gesture with his hand. Hinata had to stifle a giggle. Konohamaru fake retched before running off to play ninja with his friends. Naruto and Hinata laughed a bit before walking home together. If anyone asked why Naruto was walking towards the clan compounds, he could say he was walking Hinata home. Team 8 all arrived at the academy at the same time. They looked to each other and nodded. "Hinata, can you tell me where the most people are inside right now?" asked Naruto. Hinata nodded before activating her Byakugan. "They seem to be on the second floor, surrounding a genjutsu," informed Hinata. "Then it would be logical for us to avoid the second floor altogether," droned out Shino. The others nodded before they all jumped up onto the wall and ran to an open window on the third floor. When they reached the door marked 301, they saw Kurenai waiting for them. "Good you all showed up. If one of you hadn't, then I wouldn't have been allowed to let you in. But that isn't the case, so go in and face the first portion of the Chunin selection exams," said Kurenai as she disappeared in a classic body flicker. Her team looked at each other before Naruto pushed the door open. As soon as they stepped through the door, they were bombarded with killing intent. They didn't even flinch. After being on a battlefield with Zabuza, killing intent of this level didn't affect them. Naruto shrugged before leaning against a wall, his team following him. They waited as the rest of the rookie teams showed up. When Team 7 showed up, Sasuke sent a glare at Naruto. He was covered in bruises and his eyes kept flickering from his normal black to Sharingan red. Before he could do anything, he was jumped on by a blur of blonde hair. Naruto silently laughed as he saw Sasuke almost raped by Ino. Shikamaru and Choji came and sat with Team 8. "So troublesome," exclaimed Shikamaru before he sat down and tried to get to sleep. "Hey, you guys should keep quiet. There are a lot of hostile teams here and you rookies being loud just make you targets," said a genin that none of them recognized. "Who are you?" questioned Sakura. "I'm Kabuto, and if there's anything you want to know about these exams, just ask," said the now named Kabuto. "Why would you know about the exams? Is this your second try?" asked Sakura. It's my seventh," replied Kabuto sheepishly. Naruto stopped listening after that. Shino would tell him if anything important was said, so instead he turned to investigate the assembled genin. Not many teams got his attention, but a few did. He saw the Suna team, the redhead giving off as much killing intent as Zabuza. He saw a Konoha team with a Hyuga, a girl who looked like a panda, and a boy with a bowl haircut and massive eyebrows. Even though they looked stupid, he could feel the power and confidence that they were exuding. And the final team to catch his eye were from Iowa, the only team from Iowa in fact. There were two boys and a girl. The first boy was tall and thin, wearing brown shorts and a gray t-shirt with maroon sandals. He had a pale complexion and bright blonde hair cut into a short ponytail. His arms were covered in burn scars from the elbows down. Some fresh and some old. The second boy was short and stocky, his build reminiscent of a boulder. He had extremely tanned skin, looking like he had stayed in the sun a little too long, and his hair was mud brown. He wore brown pants and a black t-shirt with the same maroon sandals. The girl was very different from her companions. She seemed to enjoy matching her clothing to her physical characteristics. Her hair was green and she wore a t-shirt that matched. Her eyes were purple and her shorts matched them. She had the same sandals as her team. She was about the same height as Naruto with an average build for a kunoichi. They were studying him as intently as he was studying them, and they were giving off as much killing intent as Gaara. Naruto shrugged it off to hear Sasuke. I want to know about Rock Lee of Konoha and Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha. Kabuto started to reach for his cards. And can you tell me about Gaara of the desert? Naruto cut in. You know all their names, that makes it so much easier, said Kabuto as he pulled out 3 cards. First up is Gaara of the Sand. Son of the 4th Kage, his teammates are his siblings. He has been on 40 C rank missions, 20 B rank and 2 A rank. He has returned from every mission without a scratch. I don't know anything about his abilities because he's from another village. Next is Rock Lee of Konoha. His teammates are Neji Hyuga and Tenten. He has completed 200 D rank missions, 50 C ranks and 1 B rank. He graduated the last of his class and can't use Nin or Genjutsu, but his Taijutsu is off the charts. And finally Naruto Uzumaki. His teammates are Hinata Hyuga and Shino Aburame. He has completed 30 C rank missions and 1 A rank mission. His Genjutsu is non-existent, but his Nin and Taijutsu are off the charts. It is also listed that he is the fastest genin in Konoha. Finished Kabuto. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Only the Hokage had called him the fastest genin and it was never put on his record. Kabuto continued to talk while Naruto looked around the room to see if anyone had been listening. Apparently most of the room had been. Gaara looked intrigued or possibly hungry. The Iowa team were doubling their killing intent, and the guy with the bowl haircut, Rock Lee, if that Kabuto kid was right, had flames burning in his eyes and looked like he was going to challenge him to a race or something. But before he could, the team from Oto attacked Kabuto with some form of sound wave attack. Before anything else could happen though, the front of the room was engulfed in smoke. My name is Ibiki Morino and I'm the proctor of the first exam. And there will be no fighting unless told otherwise by a proctor, yelled out a scarred man in the middle of a group of Chunin. Now come and grab a number that will be your assigned seat. You have 30 seconds to get a number, get to a seat and wait for the test to start, called out Ibiki. For a second no one moved until he looked at his watch and tapped it twice. Almost everyone in the room made a mad dash for the Chunin proctors. The Iowa team, the Suna team and Team 8 all calmly collected their numbers and found their seats. Naruto found himself sitting next to Sakura. Great, the Banshee. Couldn't I have been put next to Hinata-chan? Ibiki went on to explain the rules. I'm only losing 2 points for cheating, and these questions are way too hard for genin to answer. This is for information gathering rather than book smarts. As Naruto finished this line of thought, he noticed Sakura was furiously writing down the answers. He looked around to see what had appeared to be a team of genin before were really Chunin in disguise, filling out the answers slowly so they could be copied. He noticed Sasuke using his Sharingan to copy answers. He saw Neji using his Byakugan and assumed Hinata would be as well. Gaara had an eye made of sand giving him answers. Kiba had Akamaru getting answers. Shino was using his bugs, and finally Tenten and Lee were using mirrors to convey information. Naruto smirked and faked a sneeze. When he sneezed, he released a lot of Fuden chakra, causing test papers to fly into the air. During the confusion, he darted around the room and collected the answers before racing back to his seat and writing them down. Once everyone had gotten their papers and a few were disqualified for blatantly reading other people's papers, Naruto looked around and was glad to see that no one had seen him move, not even Sakura. The kid is certainly fast. I barely tracked him as he moved through the papers, mused Ibiki. Naruto leaned back confident that he could pass. He sensed someone looking at him, but when he couldn't find who, he gave up on it. 2 rows behind Naruto sat Kadomari Wakashima, the kunoichi from Iowa. Her clan had a dojutsu, marked by their purple eyes. It allowed them a watered-down version of the Sharingan's predictive abilities. She had seen Naruto move, albeit only just, but she had definitely seen him disappear from his seat then reappear shortly after. It confirmed her team's fear that he was somehow related to the Yellow Flash. She would have to tell her teammates later. The rest of the test went pretty smoothly. Kankuro had gone to the toilet near the end and had come back just in time for the final question. "Ah, good. Did you have fun playing with your dolls?" asked Ibiki, making Kankuro sweat. "Now time for the final question. We have a few new rules for this one. You don't have to answer the question. If you don't want to answer the question, then you fail." "Why would we quit then?" yelled out Kiba. Ibiki grinned evilly. "Because if you get the question wrong, then you fail and can never take the exams again," stated Ibiki. "You can't do that. There are people who have failed before," yelled out Kiba again. "I wasn't the proctor for those exams," said Ibiki, smirking like a madman. At first no one moved until one genin cracked. In reality it was one of the disguised Chunin. Him and his team were kicked out and many followed. Naruto looked down to see Hinata slowly raising her hand. He raised his hand and slammed it onto the table. "I don't care if you stop me from becoming Chunin. To become Hokage is my dream, and nothing says that I have to be a certain rank before I can achieve my dream. So stop wasting my time and give us the question," Naruto yelled. Ibiki looked around the room and saw looks of determination on everyone present. "Well then, if none of you are going to quit, then you all pass the first exam," stated Ibiki calmly. "What about the 10th question?" called out Kiba. There was no 10th question, rather the decision to stay was the question. As a Chunin, you will be given harder missions with little to no information. Can you say no thanks and live to fight another day? No, as a Chunin you must continue onwards and either finish the mission or die trying, explained Ibiki. Then what was the point of the first 9? Asked Tamari. As ninja, our main profession is to lie and steal. Information is worth more than gold to a village. If you can't collect information without being caught, then you don't deserve to be a Chunin. But false information is even worse. When Ibiki said this, he untied the bandana around his head to reveal scars covering his head. This is the price of misinformation. Before he could say any more, a black ball shot through the window. Kunai launched from it and embedded the roof and walls. It unrolled to reveal a banner. It said, "The sexy and single Anko Mitarashi, proctor of the second exam." Ibiki's sweat dropped. "This is no time to be celebrating, it's on to the second exam," exclaimed Anko. Most of the guys in the room were trying to contain nosebleeds directed at the scantily clad proctor. Anko read the mood, no one's celebrating. Ibiki stated. Anko's sweat dropped before counting the genin remaining. 78 left. "Wow, Ibiki, you must be losing you touch," Anko said. "Or we have an incredibly talented bunch this year," countered Ibiki. "Oh well, I'll cut the numbers in half. Everyone follow me to your next exam at Training Ground 44. If you aren't there in 5 minutes, then you will fail," said Anko as she jumped out the window. For a second no one moved, then everyone except Team 8 launched themselves out the window. "Wow, Anko-sensei is being pretty nice, she hasn't made anyone bleed yet," said Hinata. "The key word is yet," said Shino in his monotone voice. Naruto just shrugged before creating 2 clones that picked up his teammates and sprinted towards the Forest of Death. Team 8 were the first to arrive at the forest. Only a few people had seen them as Naruto ran past. The few people who had noticed were Anko, Neji Hyuga and a Kunoichi from Kusa. Once the majority of the contestants had arrived at the forest, Anko started to speak. "Damn Gaki, you got faster," she exclaimed in pride. "Now then, this is the Forest of Death. Each team will be given a scroll. It will be either a heaven or earth scroll. You must obtain a full set within 5 days in the forest." 5 days. What will we do for food?" exclaimed Choji. "There are plenty of plants and animals that are edible, as long as you eat them before they eat you," explained Anko with a barely controlled bloodlust. Choji gulped in fear. "Huh. This will be a walk in the park, won't it, Akamaru?" asked Kiba as he looked to his dog. Akamaru growled at the forest before hiding inside Kiba's jacket. Before Kiba could say anything further, a kunai shot past his face, slicing a thin cut into the flesh. Before he could even flinch, Anko was on his back, running her tongue over the cut and drinking in the blood. Not the best I've had, but still the pedigree must be pretty well kept, said Enko as she savored the taste. As she did this, she pressed her body into Kiba's back. Kiba could feel her ample chest rubbing against him. With a lecherous smile and a stream of blood from his nose, he passed out. Enko looked down at the bloody mess before her. Somebody wake up the mutt, then I can continue. Sakura seemed all too happy to accept the responsibility. With a quick strike of her fist, Kiba was sent flying into the air and then back down to the ground, now fully alert and awake. A few genin chuckled before paying attention to Enko again. Now, seeing as this forest has the lowest survival rate of any training ground in Konoha, you all have to sign these waivers. This way, if you die, I won't be held responsible, said Enko cheerfully, as if she was almost hoping that they would die so she could see the blood stains they left behind. Each team signed the waivers before getting handed a scroll and told which gate they would be starting at. Team 8 got an earth scroll. The genin dispersed, all trying to reach their gates before they run out of time. Team 8 arrived at their gate and waited, knowing the layout of the forest from previous training sessions with Enko. As soon as the gates opened, Hinata activated her Byakugan and started scanning the surrounding areas. Shino sent his Kikai beetles out to find possible locations for traps and ambushes. Naruto made a dozen clones and sent them to find other teams. They made a run for a small area they had seen several times before in the forest. It was an area filled with leeches and other bugs that Shino had befriended. A team is approaching us rapidly. If we want to trap them with the leeches, then we need to act fast, said Hinata. Naruto just grabbed the supplies of ninja wire and sped around the area, creating a net and stringing it up in the trees, positioned below a large patch of leeches. A team of genin from AIM were jumping through the trees, until they found themselves hanging in a net. They were about to start cutting through the wires when the leeches dropped down, covering them in seconds. They screamed for a few seconds before Shino appeared in front of them. If you give up your scroll, then I will call off the leeches. If you don't, then you will be drained of blood in minutes, then my team will then retrieve the scroll. Take the logical choice, drawled Shino in his monotone voice. The leader of the team fumbled with his pack before retrieving the scroll. He nodded towards a tree and a blur shot forward, collecting the scroll and knocking them out. Once they were knocked out, Shino called off the leeches and released them from the net. Naruto came out holding up an earth scroll. Hinata jumped down and sighed in defeat. They needed a heaven scroll. Line break. The Iowa team had just killed a team of older Konoha nin. Huh. They were pathetic, exclaimed the blonde. At least they had our scroll, Daichi-kun, said Kadomari. The remaining teammate just grunted. Daichi Takumaya was the self-appointed leader of Team Iowa. He has a short temper and doesn't like being corrected, and he was also the long-range fighter. Tsuyoshi Nanami was the short-ranged specialist. He had the same short, stocky build that his clan was known for. Kadomari Wakashima, or Kado-chan to her teammates, was the mid-range and support fighter. She also acted as a scout thanks to her dojutsu. They were the strongest genin from the strongest clans from Iowa, personally picked by the Tsuchikage to check if rumors of a namikaze were correct. So far their suspicions were looking accurate. Now they looked to the center of the forest, towards the tower. Should we go to the tower or see if this Naruto kid is really a namikaze? Asked Tsuyoshi in his gruff voice. Daichi thought for a second before deciding. Tsuyoshi, see if you can locate their approximate location with Doden ninjutsu, then we'll head towards them, trying to remain hidden. Once we get close to their location, we'll follow from a distance using your Aikado-chan to keep track without having to get too close, instructed Daichi. His teammates nodded and Tsuyoshi performed a few hand seals before placing his palms on the ground. Even if Daichi appointed himself leader, he is good at thinking up plans, thought Kado. I have him, said Tsuyoshi before taking off in the direction he indicated, the others following behind. They found their trail fairly quickly. They had found a team of unconscious genin, lacking a scroll, meaning they had been beaten by either the team they were hunting or another passing team. but based off of what looked like leech marks that must have been done by a member of the Aburame clan, and the only Aburame member that was participating was in the team they were after. They all smiled a smile that is often associated with predators. The team took off, now certain that they would be able to find information for their leader. Line break. Team 8 camped next to a small stream. Hinata made a small fire and started preparing a simple meal. Shino sent insects out to scout the area, and Naruto sped around the forest setting up traps and snares that would prevent most teams from making it to the camp. When Naruto arrived back, he saw Hinata serving up a large bowl of stew for Shino and herself. Once she was done serving, she passed the pot and a spoon to Naruto, smiling at him the entire time. He grabbed the pot and spoon before and began eating at a pace that only he could, finishing before his teammates. Wow, Hinata-chan, you are the second best cook I know, only Tsukijiji from the ramen stand can beat you, stated Naruto with sincerity. Hinata blushed and finished her bowl before walking over to Naruto and kissing him on the cheek. Thank you, Naruto-kun, now I think it's your turn to wash up tonight, she said sweetly. Okay, Hinata-chan, Naruto exclaimed brightly before collecting Hinata and Shino's eating utensils and heading to the stream to begin washing things, using Kaden chakra to heat the water. The three of them set up a guard shift and Naruto and Hinata went to sleep, in separate tents. Pervs. Line break. The next day Team 8 broke camp before heading out. At about midday they felt a strange power coming from the forest a distance away. You guys keep heading towards the tower, I'll head over there to check out what's going on. If I'm not back soon, set up camp and then call for me, Hinata-chan, said Naruto. Before Hinata or Shino could say anything, he had already run off. Hinata sighed in defeat before nodding to Shino and they took off toward the tower. Naruto was nothing but a blur as he raced through the forest, passing teams that only noticed a gust of wind. Team Iwa had decided that Kato was the only one who could hope to catch up with Naruto, so she chased after while the other two followed after Hinata and Shino. Naruto arrived to a strange sight. Kiba, Akamaru and Sakura were unconscious, while Sasuke was on his knees with a strange man standing over him, biting his neck. With a scream of pain, Sasuke collapsed. The man looked ready to leave before he had to jump back, barely avoiding being hit with a punch that was close to breaking the speed of sound. Kukuku, who do we have here? Taunted Orochimaru. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the guy who's going to take you down for trying to hurt my friends, exclaimed Naruto. Orochimaru just smirked before the smirk changed to an expression of horror as he dodged a sword that would have taken his head off. The only thing he had seen was a flash of red. Namikaze, he growled before ducking under another slash. Oh, so you know my bloodline, do you? Stated Naruto as he took off his trench coat. That makes this easier, no holding back. With that, Naruto started flashing around attempting to strike Orochimaru. To Naruto's frustration, none of them landed, although he did manage to steal an earth scroll from his pouch. You are out of your league, Naruto-kun. I am Orochimaru of the Sannin, you'll never beat me, Orochimaru said, although with the speed that Naruto was moving never might have been a little exaggerated. If he had the same stamina as his mother and father, then Orochimaru would be the first to drop from exhaustion. It was at this point that Kato arrived, close enough that she would be away from the battle but still able to see what was happening, when she Naruto teleporting around the clearing and going toe-to-toe with the traitor Sannin. She took off the way she had come, not needing any more evidence and not wanting to die in the crossfire. Arg, that's it. Shadow Clone Jutsu, called out Naruto as 9 identical copies of him appeared. Namikaze Dicing Flash Barrage, yelled out all the clones as they flashed to Orochimaru, swords out and ready to be used. For a few swings Orochimaru was fine, until one of the clones seemed to get lucky, his sword poking out of Orochimaru's chest. The clones poofed out of existence and Naruto threw his swords down next to his trench coat. He was about to relax until the body turned to mud. He was surprised at first, but his expression quickly hardened. He spun around to see several head-sized fireballs impacting his chest. With a quick burst of Fudan chakra, the fire was put out, but his shirt was already burnt and his skin singed, the damage to his skin already healing. He growled before looking to where the fireballs had originated from. He was about to flash over when he felt a burning sensation in his arm. He looked down to see Orochimaru's neck extended to impossible lengths, his teeth embedded into his arm. A black mark staring to form. Orochimaru pulled his head back in before disappearing into the ground. "You shall be an interesting test subject, Naruto," stated Orochimaru as his presence disappeared from the area. Naruto looked to his arm to a strange black mark starting to form. He shrugged. Hinata would check it out with her Byakugan later. He picked up his trench coat and resealed his swords before walking over to Sakura and waking her, none too gently I might add. As soon as she woke up, she raced over to Sasuke and started to check him over. Naruto was going to say something until he felt a pull on his mind, signifying that someone was calling him, and seeing as only two people currently had a seal to call him, Hinata and the Hokage, it must have been Hinata. He vanished in a red flash, startling Sakura. He appeared in the middle of a clearing, his team's camp already set up, Hinata and Shino looking at him expectantly. Naruto sighed before explaining what happened and went to sit down. Before he could though, Hinata pulled his trench coat off and revealed his shirtless form. She blushed a bit before looking at the black marking on Naruto's arm. From his right shoulder down to his elbow was an intricate tribal tattoo, based around 3 spirals in the middle. Hinata looked at it with her Byakugan and saw a dark chakra that was slowly draining out of his system thanks to his bloodlines. She told him what he saw and he smiled before kissing her forehead. "See, nothing to worry about, my Hime," said Naruto, causing Hinata to blush bright red. He had never called her his princess. Omake. It was the first night in the exams and Team Iwa were camping downstream of Team 8. Tsuyoshi walked upstream a bit to clean himself. Even though he primarily used Doden ninjutsu, he hated to stay dirty. He tested the water and found that it was a pleasant temperature. He stripped off and started to wash himself. When he was almost done, the water suddenly became boiling hot, causing his skin to turn bright red and blister from the waist down. He screamed in pain before sprinting back to the camp to get some healing supplies that they had brought with them. Upon arrival, he looked to his teammates. "Where are the burn salves? Guys, I need help," yelled Tsuyoshi. Daichi just laughed and fell over, his face turning blue. Kato wasn't much better, except she had a rather large nosebleed and fell over backwards out cold. It was at this point that Tsuyoshi looked down, suddenly realizing his clothes were back upstream. He sprinted back the way he had come and came back a few minutes later, this time covered, barely. He rooted around through the packs before finding the salves. He went into his tent and started applying them, grumbling about the forest and his stupid teammates. Back at Team 8's camp, Shino thought he heard a scream but didn't worry about it. It appeared to be getting further away. Once Hinata had calmed down from Naruto calling her a princess, Team 8 prepared to leave. With both scrolls, there was nothing stopping them from making a dash for the tower. With shadow clones carrying Hinata and Shino, they could make it to the tower in less than a minute. Until now there had been no point without the scrolls, but after facing Orochimaru, Naruto wanted to be out of the forest as fast as possible. Upon arrival at the tower, Naruto let his teammates down before dispelling his clones. He watched Hinata as they walked into the tower. He didn't know why he had called her a princess, but he felt that it fit. He didn't realize that Hinata and Shino were talking until they told him to open the scrolls. This snapped him out of his daze. He smiled sheepishly as he pulled out the scrolls and unrolled them on the floor. Inside were a lot of seals. It took Naruto a second to realize it was some form of summoning. He had seen them in his father's Fuinjutsu books. In a poof of smoke, Iruka appeared. "Hey guys, congratulations. You're the second team to make it here," said Iruka. "Hear that, guys, we are awesome," yelled Naruto. "Ah, I missed you, Naruto," stated Iruka fondly. "Me too, sensei," said Naruto with a smile. "Now if you'll follow me, I'll show you to your rooms for the duration of the exam," said Iruka as he led them up into the tower itself. Line break. At the end of the 5 days, all the genin that passed were called into an arena. They stood in front of a stage with a large statue of two hands holding the ram seal. It was obviously an arena. A viewing deck ringed the entire room. Congratulations to all of you have passed the second stage of the Chunin selection exams. Came the booming voice of the Hokage. The Hokage went on to explain how the exams were a replacement for war and helped maintain peace in the elemental nations. He was about to explain that they needed a preliminary fight but was interrupted. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, cough cough, but may I explain cough this next part? Asked the newcomer. Of course, Hayate-kun, said the Hokage smiling. Hayate smiled in response before turning to the genin. Hello, I am Kof Hayate Gecko, proctor of the Kof third exam. The third exam is a tournament in 1 month time. Sadly, cough, there are too many of you for it, explained Hayate. This guy should be in a hospital, not on active duty, thought Naruto and a few others around the room. What do you mean too many? Asked Ino. A lot of important people come to see these fights. They only want to see the best of the best and can't stay for a long time, so we try to keep the fights to single digits. So we will have a preliminary round right now. If any of you think you can't fight, then raise your hand now. Don't worry about your teammates, everything is single from now on, explained Hayate. Kabuto raised his hand. I don't think I can fight properly. I can't hear anything out of my left ear, said Kabuto. Hayate acknowledged him and signaled to a Chunin to escort him from the room and out of the forest. Now then, the fights are random and will match you with anyone, explained Hayate as a panel on the wall slid away to reveal a screen. The first fight will be started. Hayate as names started to flash on the screen, settling on Sasuke Uchiha vs. Yoroi Akato. Everyone except the two fighters go up to the viewing platform, instructed Hayate. The fight should have been quick with Sasuke using the Sharingan, but for some reason whenever he used chakra he would grab his neck. Yoroi made things harder by absorbing Sasuke's chakra through touch. Sasuke won the fight using taijutsu moves that were clearly not his own. When the fight was over, Kakashi grabbed Sasuke and body flickered out of the room. Tenten vs. Temari of the Desert. Tenten had started strong with her impressive use of ninja tools but was blocked easily by Temari's use of Fuden ninjutsu. Tenten had pulled out her trump card with her twin rising dragons, which was a literal shower of steel. Sadly, Temari stopped it again. She then used a jutsu to launch Tenten into the air before she dropped, landing on top of Temari's battle fan with a sickening crunch. Tenten was carried out on a stretcher. Her sensei and his chibi known as Lee watched with concern. Kiba Inuzuka vs. Gaara of the Desert. Kiba was about to jump into the ring when Akamaru started to whimper and back away. What do you mean he smells of blood and death? Questioned Kiba. Akamaru just barked a few times. Kiba paled. Proctor, we forfeit, yelled Kiba in fear. The proctor nodded and Gaara looked at Kiba in rage but went and stood back with his siblings and sensei, who all moved away a little. Sakura Haruno vs. Ino Yamanaka. This fight, while showing potential in the girls, was recorded as the worst fight in the exam's history. The girls spent most of the fight arguing over past grudges and Sasuke. It ended with a double knockout. The girls' senseis shook their heads in shame as they carried them up to the rest of the genin. Shino Aburame vs. Masumi Tsurugi. Shino and Masumi stood across from each other, Shino remaining impassive as he observed his opponent. You should just give up before I kill you, said Masumi. Begin, shouted Hayate when it became obvious that Shino wasn't going to reply. Masumi instantly shot forward and stretched his limbs out to wrap Shino up, his arms firmly around Shino's neck. Forfeit or I'll snap your neck, said Masumi with conviction. No response, huh? Oh well. And with that he snapped Shino's neck, or at least that's what he thought. He was quickly brought out of this misconception when he found the body he was holding turn into bugs, which quickly latched onto him and started draining his chakra. Soon he looked like a pile of stretched rubber, unable to control his limbs anymore. He was carried out on several stretchers to make sure nothing fell on the floor and get stepped on. Winner Shino Aburame, called out Hayate. Shino nodded to the proctor before rejoining his team on the platform. Kankuro of the Desert vs. Tsuyoshi Nanami. The two squared stood apart, Kankuro smiling smugly and Tsuyoshi hardened his face, becoming looking like some sort of statue. Hayate looked between the two of them before raising his hand. Begin, he called as he dropped his hand. Tsuyoshi flew through a short sequence of hand seals and started to speed across the ground. The rocks beneath him were pushing him along. When he got in close, he swung his fist forward in a devastating punch that resembled one of Tsunade's punches. Instead of the sound of breaking bones and the sight of blood, creaking wood could be heard, and a cracking is what looked like Kankuro cracked apart to reveal a puppet. The bundle on the puppet's back split open to reveal the real Kankuro. "Phew, glad that wasn't me," said Kankuro as he prepared Crow, the puppet. "Don't worry, I will remedy that mistake," said Tsuyoshi in his gruff manner. Before Tsuyoshi could take a step, the puppet opened its mouth in several small compartments. I want to keep my bones in good condition, thanks," said Kankuro as he twitched his fingers and made the puppet start firing needles dripping with poison. Tsuyoshi dodged as many as he could while doing hand seals. When he was done, he slapped his hands onto the ground. Rocks shot up around him and wrapped him in an armor. "Doden. Rock armor jutsu," he yelled as the remaining needles hit the rocks and bounced off. Kankuro could only watch as Tsuyoshi smashed his puppet with one punch before running straight for him. He tried to use the disconnected parts of Crow, but they bounced off of the still active rock armor. Before he could dodge, he was hit with the powerful punch, feeling his ribs crack and break. He collapsed with a spray of blood from his mouth. "Winner Tsuyoshi Nanami," announced Hayate as medics carried Kankuro off. Tsuyoshi calmly walked back to his team. Shikamaru Nara vs. Kadomari Wakashima. Shikamaru looked across at the girl he was supposed to fight. "Troublesome," he muttered as the fight began. He had to dodge quickly as the girl started to throw kunai and shuriken rapidly. Her aim was too accurate. "Her eyes are glowing with chakra. She must have a dojutsu that predicts movement," analyzed Shikamaru in thought, instantly coming up with plans to take her out. "Perfect, he'll land right on the exploding tag I placed with one of my early kunai throws," thought Kato victoriously. "Perfect the tag will cause enough of a smokescreen," thought Shikamaru. He landed on the tag, which promptly detonated, smoke and dust covering the arena. Kato started to laugh until she realized she couldn't move. She looked down to see a shadow connected to her own coming from the side. She felt her body move against its own will to turn her head to follow the shadow. At the end of the shadow was Shikamaru, his head turned the same as hers. "Shadow possession success," drawled Shikamaru as he looked to her the ground next to Kato. He bent down and mimicked grabbing something. Kato, following his movements, grabbed the kunai. "I suggest forfeiting before I make you start hurting yourself," said Shikamaru as he slid the point of the kunai across her other palm, causing blood to start to pool in her hand. "Proctor, I surrender," she said as she bit down the anger at being beaten by a leaf shinobi. "Winner Shikamaru Nara," yelled Hayate. Naruto Uzumaki vs. Rock Lee. "Yush, now I can defend my title as fastest genin," yelled Lee excitedly. Lee then started whispering to his sensei and writing notes in a small book. Naruto wasn't paying attention as he was already waiting in the arena. 1 second he had been in the observation area and then he had been on the floor. "Yush, Naruto-kun, you have already started beating me in speed," yelled Lee, still as excited as ever. "Well, if you want a battle of speed, let's see what you've got," said Naruto as he extended his arm and used the come gesture. Lee smiled brightly, a flash literally sparkling off of his teeth. Then he was gone, a blur of green that launched forward and slammed to a stop on the other side of the arena. "Well, you are fast, Lee, but compared to me you're moving in slow motion," taunted Naruto. "Yush, you truly are a great opponent, Naruto-kun," yelled Lee as he shot forward again. Naruto dodged each attack as they came. "Lee, take them off," yelled Lee's sensei Might Guy. "Are you sure, Guy sensei?" asked Lee. His only response was a thumbs up and a smile, also known as the nice guy pose. Lee smiled back before jumping back and landing on the top of the hands. He pulled down his leg warmers and revealed weights strapped to each ankle. He took them off and held them up. What difference are a few pounds going to make? Questioned Tamari, not believing that he would gain any advantage now. She was shocked when the weights made large craters in the ground, enough to shake the building foundations. Ah, I can move so freely now, called out Lee as he disappeared again. Naruto brought up a block at the last second. Seems I'll have to take you seriously then, stated Naruto as both boys disappeared into blurs. Most of the people present could only hear the sounds of flesh colliding. Kato could make out most of what was happening from where she sat with a bandaged hand. The Hyugas present could see the trail of chakra left in Naruto's wake, but that was it. The experienced Jonin and the Hokage could watch the fight fairly well. Suddenly a crash resounded around the arena as Lee smashed into a wall, his visible skin covered in bruises. Naruto seemed no worse for wear. I'm sorry Guy-sensei, but I must protect my ninja way, thought Lee as he opened the first gate. Gate of opening, release, yelled Lee as chakra started to swirl around him. Front lotus, yelled Lee as he attempted to knock Naruto into the air but wasn't fast enough to catch him. Gate of healing, release. Gate of life, release, yelled Lee as his skin turned red and his eyes turned white. The chakra around him started to crack the ground he was standing on. Reverse lotus, screamed Lee as he attacked Naruto with a reckless abandon, his attacks seeming to land every time, eventually knocking Naruto up to the roof. Once he was high enough, Lee started to pummel him again, appearing and disappearing around him, finishing with a devastating heel drop onto Naruto's stomach. Naruto was sent careening toward the ground, a giant cloud of dust exploded everywhere. Lee fell to the ground, barely able to stand as he waited for the dust to clear. When it did, it revealed Naruto standing perfectly fine, the ground wasn't even damaged. I'm glad I blocked all those hits, if I hadn't the landing would have been a lot harder to stop, stated Naruto. Lee was at first shocked, then angry that he could be beaten so effortlessly, then his face changed into one of happiness, albeit also pain. Yosh Naruto-kun, you are truly quite the adversary, he said sedately. I wish to be your eternal rival if it's not too much to ask, asked Lee. Of course Lee, that was one of my best fights yet, he said while smiling. Lee smiled back before collapsing. Winner Naruto Uzumaki, yelled Hayate. The observation decks were dumbstruck, they couldn't believe the fight they had just seen, or rather hadn't, and some of the moves Naruto had pulled were missed by the Hokage. Choji Akamichi vs. Daichi Takumaya. Choji had initially refused to fight until Asuma had offered barbecue for lunch. His eyes had started to burn with the fires of a million barbecues. Before the start of the match, Daichi had just smirked. He thought it was going to be an easy win. Unfortunately, he made the mistake of calling Choji fat. Choji in his rage had started to ricochet off the walls in his human boulder form. I was hoping to keep this until the finals, but oh well, said Daichi as what had looked like dark lines on his palms split open to reveal mouths. The lips had been hidden amongst the burns that covered his arms. He reached into his hip pouches and pulled his hands out. The mouths were chewing for a few seconds as Daichi dodged Choji. When the mouths were done, they opened and stuck out their tongues to show small clay spiders. Daichi threw them. They expanded and everyone saw that they weren't perfect. They were slightly lumpy and misshapen, but they did their job, latching onto Choji. Katsu, yelled Daichi as the spiders detonated, sending Choji flying across the room. When the smoke cleared, it revealed Choji in a heap on the floor, his eyes swirling. Winner Daichi Takumaya, yelled out Hayate. Daichi smirked again as he walked back to his teammates. Will the final two competitors please come down to the floor? Called out Hayate. Hinata looked at Neji fearfully. Naruto grabbed her hand and squeezed. Don't worry, no matter what happens, I believe in you, my Haim, whispered Naruto. Hinata smiled in thanks as she walked down to the arena. You should give up now, Hinata-sama, Neji said scornfully. Hinata Hyuga vs. Neji Hyuga. Hinata looked up to Naruto, who nodded and smiled. She smiled in response before dropping into the Jukin stance. Hey, fine, have it your way, said Neji as he dropped into the same stance. Begin, yelled Hayate. Neji didn't waste any time as he shot forward, sending blow after blow at Hinata, who dodged as many as she could while also attempting a few strikes of her own. She even had an opportunity to land a killing blow but didn't. She was unable to harm her cousin. After another minute of exchanging blows, Neji jumped back and looked at the small chakra burns on his arms. They were only a nuisance, they weren't stopping his chakra so he could keep fighting. Sadly for Hinata, she wasn't as lucky. Her arms were now completely useless. She looked to the proctor, then to Naruto. He smiled at her, and that was all she needed. She shakily got up and got ready to fight again. You should stay down, Hinata-sama. He said scornfully. You cannot hope to defeat me with your pitiful power. I'm not fighting with my power alone, I carry with me the power of those I love and those who love me back, said Hinata. That must be a short list, scoffed Neji. It has the one person who counts, said Hinata as she charged in, swinging with palm strikes and punches that were almost nothing thanks to her chakra being blocked off. Up on the observation stand, Naruto had a tear tracing its way down his cheek. Hinata kept trying to fight but knew it was a losing battle. Neji was growing frustrated with the fight, so during his strikes he aimed one powerful shot to her heart, sending her sliding back and making her cough up blood as she fell to the ground. As Hayate was about to call the match, she got back up. Why do you continue? You cannot possibly win, said Neji. Hinata smiled faintly. I won't give up. I won't quit. I won't let you beat me because I quit. That is our ninja way, she exclaimed as she looked to Naruto. Neji scowled before charging forward, a strike aimed directly for Hinata's heart. Before he could hit her, he was restrained by the proctor, his sensei and Hinata's sensei. Pathetic. Special privileges for the main house, scoffed Neji. No protection for my student, said Guy seriously. It was at this point that Neji saw Naruto standing over Hinata, two swords held out in front of him, almost piercing Neji's chest. Naruto sighed in defeat as he sealed his swords away. He turned around and picked Hinata up and carried her toward the medics. He smiled at her and mouthed 3 words that Hinata had always wanted to hear from him. I love you. Naruto was walking around Konoha. Kurenai was training Shino in genjutsu to hide his bugs, but the Hokage had apparently set up a teacher for him, a teacher that was nowhere to be found. He was up against Sasuke in his first fight, and while he didn't think that Sasuke himself was a threat, his eyes were. He wanted to learn a few genjutsu that may be able to fool the legendary dojutsu or any other technique that would get the job done. Flashback. The winners from each fight were given a number to determine the finals matchups. Sasuke had been assigned the remaining number. Temari 6, Gaara 9, Shino 7, Tsuyoshi 2, Shikamaru 5, Naruto 4, Daichi 8, Neji 1, Sasuke 3. Making the first round of fights. Neji vs Tsuyoshi, Naruto vs Sasuke, Shikamaru vs Temari, Shino vs Daichi, and the winner of the last fight would fight Gaara. End flashback. So Naruto needed training for use against the Sharingan. He was confident he could beat Neji, combining his desire for revenge with his bloodlines and months training with Hinata. After that he was unsure who he would be facing, so just being prepared for anything would be fine, but first he would need this elusive sensei. Just as he was walking past the hot springs, ready to give up, he heard a giggling. His pent-up anger towards this sensei made him snap. Looking around, he spotted an old man with long white hair sitting in a tree, watching the women's area of the hot spring. Upon closer inspection, Naruto saw a small line of blood dribbling down from his nose. Futen. Gale wind palm, Naruto exclaimed as he shot a jet of wind from his palm into the man's back, propelling him over the fence and into the middle of a group of kunoichi. Screams of pervert and the sound of fist colliding with flesh were heard for the next 10 minutes before the women from the hot spring left. The man came crawling out on all fours, covered in bruises and blood. As soon as he saw Naruto standing there waiting for him, he jumped up and looked good as new. "Oi Gaki, did you see who used that jutsu? I have some retribution to dish out," said the old man. "That would have been me," replied Naruto calmly. "Why would you do that to the great?" the man said as he started to get into a pose. "I did it because you're meant to be training me, Jiraiya," interrupted Naruto, a blank stare adorning his face. "Oh, you know who I am," pouted Jiraiya. "Of course I do. Why wouldn't I know my father, sensei?" asked Naruto. Jiraiya's mouth opened wide. He didn't think Naruto knew who his parents were yet. "I'll have to talk to the Hokage about this. He should have told me that Naruto knew," thought Jiraiya. "So you know about them?" questioned Jiraiya, switching to a more serious demeanor. "I've known about them since I became a genin," said Naruto. "But you weren't meant to know until either you became a Chunin or awakened one of your bloodlines," stated Jiraiya. Slightly confused, Naruto just smirked before looking around and disappearing in a flash of red. He reappeared a second later to see Jiraiya smiling widely. "That's incredible, Gaki. To think you've awakened it this early. It took Minato 3 years of training to get it to work properly," said Jiraiya. "You can thank my furry friend for that," said Naruto. "His chakra is fire-based, so I have a strong secondary affinity for fire along with my incredibly powerful primary affinity of wind." "Amazing. The Uzumaki bloodline must act like a filter, adding the fire chakra to your own," mused Jiraiya. "Are we going to train or what?" questioned Naruto. Yeah, sure. We'll start tomorrow, so be at training ground 15 tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. said Jiraiya before he used the body flicker to disappear in a swirl of leaves. Training ground 15 is near a waterfall that some of the civilian girls go to when it's hot. I live in fire country, it's always hot. Damn that pervert, mused Naruto. An evil smirk then took over his face. He flashed back to his home and made 50 shadow clones, which quickly got to work organizing what would be his first major prank since becoming a genin. While his clones were working, he sat down and started reading more of his father's journal, reading the notes on Fuinjutsu that had led to the creation of the beacon seals used on his infamous tri-pronged kunai. The notes were interesting and showed Naruto little bits of knowledge that he could use later. It was while he was looking through the notes that he found something that gave him a brilliant idea. Minato had toyed with a few elemental-based seals that worked as traps, charging them with a certain type of chakra and adding a few different seals to the total array caused different reactions. For instance, using some of the seals found on an explosive tag combined with trigger seals based off of chakra locators and then charged with wind chakra created a seal that when someone who wasn't entered into the seal as safe came near it would explode with gale force winds. Naruto smirked before sending more clones to work on them. Jiraiya may be the one training him for the finals, but that didn't mean he couldn't find some stuff on his own. "In Iowa, sir, reports have come back from the team sent to Konoha," stated a ninja with a blank mask. "And what did they say?" questioned the aging Tsuchikage. "Kadomari confirmed that a Namikaze heir is present in Konoha and competing in the exams. 2 of our genin also made it to the finals, sir," said the ninja. "Send a message to every available Jonin and Chunin. We attack Konoha during the finals," said the Tsuchikage with finality. The ninja nodded before disappearing into the shadows. So the snake was right after all. Looks like Iwa and Odo will be invading Konoha together, thought the Tsuchikage. Training ground 15. The next morning Naruto met Jiraiya in the training ground, a sly smirk barely concealed on his face. "Alright Gaki, I'm going to teach you how to summon the legendary summon clan of the Toads," exclaimed Jiraiya, his excitement showing. Naruto was excited too. He had wanted to sign the same summoning contract as his father but couldn't without Jiraiya's help, and now was his chance. Jiraiya smiled and bit his thumb before doing a few hand seals. "Kyuchio's no jutsu," exclaimed Jiraiya as a toad appeared holding a large scroll. "Here you go, Jiraiya-sama," said the clone as he handed over the scroll before disappearing in a poof of smoke. Now brat, I want you to bit your thumb and leave a fingerprint in blood for each finger, preferably the hand you'll use when actually summoning. Instructed Jiraiya. Then write your name in blood underneath. Naruto did as instructed and smiled at the previous name in the scroll, his father's name. Seeing it say Minato Namikaze, he decided to sign it with his proper name as well. Naruto Namikaze. Once he was finished signing it, Jiraiya showed him the seals. Now you have to make sure you supply blood and chakra for this to work. The chakra is to call the summon, of course, and bring it here, but the blood is more of a formality. Originally summons took several people to summon, they would all pour blood into a seal as a sacrifice, then the summon would appear. Explained Jiraiya. Now you try to summon something, start with a small amount of chakra, then increase it for each successful summon. Naruto performed the hand seals and slammed his bloody palm to the floor. Kyuchio's no jutsu, exclaimed Naruto as a small toad appeared in a burst of smoke. All right, first try, shouted Naruto with joy. The toad looked around confused. Hey, I'm Gamakichi, you must be the new summoner. Said Gamakichi. If I'm your first try at summoning, then you must be pretty good. It took the old man a day before he could summon an actual toad. That's enough, Kichi, you can go now. Said Jiraiya as he tried to save some dignity. Yeah, alright, I'll tell Pops that you're better than the old perv and he'll want to meet you for himself, so work on summoning him. You'll know if you do, he's the biggest toad. Gamabunta, the boss toad himself. And with that, Gamakichi disappeared in a burst of smoke. Now Gaki starts summoning increasingly larger toads and I'll just be over there surveying the area. Said Jiraiya as he got out a telescope and jumped up into a tree that had a straight line of sight to the waterfall. He giggled lecherously at the three girls he saw until a stampede of large men in tight swimming trunks came charging into the clearing and into the water. The entire male population of the Akamichi clan was present, swimming where the girls had once been. Their entire fleshy bodies on view, Jiraiya gagged and fell out of the tree. Naruto paused in the middle of his hand seals and laughed, mentally congratulating his clones. Jiraiya glared at Naruto before sitting down, sighing. Just keep training, you little brat. He said, exasperated. Sure, Ero-sensei. Laughed Naruto before he went back to summoning. Jiraiya watched Naruto summoning toads all day. Kurenai's chakra training had done wonders for the boy. He had summoned toads of almost all sizes and got to know many of them, becoming fast friends with most of the Toad clan in just one day. At about 4 in the afternoon, Naruto built up a large amount of chakra and slammed his palm to the ground. A giant burst of smoke filled the whole clearing and Gamabunta appeared out of it in all his glory. Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? He yelled out. Jiraiya jumped in shock. It wasn't me, Bunta, it was my new student. Said Jiraiya as he pointed to the boy who was now standing on top of the great toad. Hello Gamabunta-sama. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Said Naruto politely with a bow. The pleasure's mine, boy. You remind me so much of your father, it's funny. Said Gamabunta. Jiraiya watched in shock. No one got along with Bunta like that straight away. Now kid, I may like you, but you still gotta do the test to see if you're worthy of summoning me. Said Bunta. Alright, I can take anything you throw at me. Replied Naruto enthusiastically. And there's where his mother's genes come in. Muttered Gamabunta. Naruto just smiled in response. Now kid, you've got to stay on my head until sunset. If you can, then you will be deemed worthy and have to have a drink with me. Then you will be recognized as the next Toad summoner. Explained Gamabunta. Alright, let's do this. Shouted Naruto as he pumped chakra to his feet to hold on. Jiraiya sighed and sat back, knowing that now he just had to wait for either sundown or for Naruto to collapse from exhaustion. He was a little shocked that Naruto had managed to summon something so large on his first day trying, but quickly shook his head. He should have learned long ago to never underestimate a Namikaze or Uzumaki. The rest of the day was spent with Naruto holding on for dear life whilst the great toad launched himself all over the forest surrounding Konoha. When the sun was setting, Naruto lost his grip and went flying into the air. In a last-ditch effort to make it to sunset, he threw a kunai with a beacon seal on it over Gamabunta. He didn't like his chances here. He hadn't been able to teleport to a moving seal yet, so this was going to be a test of his skills. As the kunai soared over Gamabunta's head, Naruto flashed to it and grabbed it out of the air before falling down onto Gamabunta's back. He grabbed on and watched as the sun finally went below the horizon. As soon as it was, he collapsed, falling from Gamabunta's back unconscious. Gamabunta grabbed him with his tongue and brought him back to Jiraiya. "Hey, the kid's good. I'll guess I'll have to wait for the drink though," said Gamabunta as he disappeared in a burst of smoke just as big as the one that had signaled his appearance. Jiraiya smiled before grabbing Naruto and taking his unconscious body home. "Alright Gaki, today I'm going to start teaching you a jutsu your father created," said Jiraiya as he held his palm out. "This is the jutsu your father created based off of the tailed beast bomb. It's called Rasengan," he cried out as an orb of rotating chakra appeared in his outstretched hand. He charged forward and slammed it into a tree, punching a hole straight through it. Naruto's jaw was almost reaching the floor. He had heard and read about the Rasengan but had no way to learn it until now. "Alright Ero-sensei. Teach me, teach me," Naruto called out excitedly. "Alright Gaki, calm down. This took the Yondaime years to create and master, and it took me 3 months after he taught it to me before I mastered it," explained Jiraiya. When he saw that Naruto's enthusiasm didn't decrease at all, he sighed and pulled 2 water balloons out of a sealing scroll. "This is the first step to learning the Rasengan. Alright Naruto. Use your chakra to spin the water in the balloon until it pops like this," Jiraiya explained as he held the balloon in his palm. The balloon started to bulge randomly before exploding into a shower of water and rubber. Naruto watched intently before holding his palm out with the water balloon on it. He focused solely on the balloon and started channeling his chakra to it. The balloon started to wobble and move but didn't bulge randomly like Jiraiya's had. "Kid, you keep working on that while I go talk to the Hokage for a while," Jiraiya said as his body flickered away. Naruto just shrugged before going back to working on the water balloon. Back at the Namikaze compound, hundreds of clones were sitting in and around the library. They all had various books on Fuinjutsu and Minato's notes. They were trying to find a way to properly draw the elemental seals. The main problem was finding a seal that would absorb the chakra and store it until its release. Every now and then, when a clone found something interesting or finished what it was reading, it would dispel and the other clones would get the information. Out in the training field, more clones were sitting with calligraphy kits and sealing tags. They were continually working on seal designs that were relayed to them from dispelling clones. One of them picked up the seal it had just drawn. It wasn't what they were after, but it seemed to be just as useful. The clone smiled in triumph before concentrating and flashing to Naruto's position. The clones could always teleport back to the original because they shared chakra and thus had a link back to the source. Training Ground 15. The clone appeared and handed Naruto the seal it had drawn before dispelling. Naruto looked the seal over for a few minutes before smiling widely. He created a new clone and attached the seal to its back. The clone nodded before it started running. It ran back to the Namikaze compound and then kept running. Running through the forest that bordered the back of the compound, the clone was running so fast by this point that it was just a blur. Naruto went back to trying to burst the water balloon in his hand. Hokage's office. Jiraiya knocked on the Hokage's window and entered before a response was given. "Why didn't you tell me that he knew?" questioned Jiraiya. Hiruzen just smiled his grandfatherly smile. "Because I knew he'd tell you eventually," Hiruzen said, the smile never leaving his face. "Well, now I know why Iwa has been freaking out as of late. I would freak out too if I found out that my greatest enemy had a son that was displaying a lot of his traits. Not to mention a bloodline to boot," Jiraiya said. "There isn't much that can be done now. If Iwa think they can kill Naruto, then they have another thing coming. He is already frighteningly able with his father's bloodline, and if you add his clones to the mix, an army might just be a minor annoyance," Hiruzen stated. pride leaking into his voice. Jiraiya sighed before getting up to leave. The brat thinks I'm here with the Hokage. I can get some research in before I go back to him, Jiraiya thought lecherously. Several hours, and several beatings by Kunoichi that caught him spying. Later Jiraiya made his way back to the training ground. He arrived just in time to see Naruto burst the water balloon on his palm. Naruto smiled in triumph before collapsing to the ground, utterly exhausted. Or at least that's what Jiraiya thought. In reality, a faulty seal had just caused a large amount of clones to dispel, and the sudden influx of memories had knocked Naruto out. Jiraiya picked Naruto up and carried him to the Ichiraku ramen stand and waited for him to wake up. After a few minutes, Naruto started to stir. "Hey kid, there's ramen waiting for you," Jiraiya said quietly. Instantly Naruto was wide awake and almost inhaling the bowl of ramen in front of him. Jiraiya chuckled, "Like mother like son." After several bowls of ramen, Jiraiya paid for the meal and then the two of them went their separate ways. Naruto headed home and Jiraiya headed towards the bathhouse in hopes of getting some more research in before they closed for the night. The rest of the month was pretty similar, Jiraiya teaching him the Rasengan while his clones worked on seals. It took half of the month for the clones to develop a seal that would absorb and store the chakra, and the other half of the month to find people to fill the seals with elemental chakra. The first and second steps of the Rasengan had been easy for Naruto, but the final step, control, had taken most of the month. He couldn't keep the chakra stable within the balloon without bursting it to pieces. He had to increase his chakra control exponentially with advanced chakra control exercises and a lot of meditation. But at the end of the month, Naruto could hold one hand out in front of himself and summon forth the destructive power of the Rasengan to devastating results. The arena. Naruto arrived on the arena floor 2 hours before the scheduled start. He smirked when he saw it deserted and started working his way through the mock battleground, placing seals in places that he could use later but wouldn't be disturbed in any other fights. Once he was done, he went and waited at the gate for the others to arrive. Everyone but Sasuke made it to the arena on time, and so they went inside and stood in the center of the arena. The proctor looked them over and smiled, giving them all a discreet thumbs up. "Don't look around, guys. You're on show here today, so everybody's watching," he said, although they saw that it was a different proctor from the preliminaries. "What happened to Hayate?" questioned Naruto. "He couldn't make it today, he's in the hospital. My name is Genma and I'll be the proctor for this portion of the exams," Genma explained. "Now once the Hokage has made his opening speech, can you all make your way through that door over there and up to the observation decks? Neji and Tsuyoshi, please remain here though." Naruto looked at all the assembled Chunin hopefuls and noticed that there was one missing. "Great, Sasuke is running late. He better be here for our fight. I'm not going to miss out on a chance to test my seals against the Sharingan," thought Naruto. Up in the cage box, Hiruzen looked at the cage as he sat down in the seat prepared for him. "Long trip, cage dono?" he questioned. "Yes, Hokage dono. It's a good thing you didn't have to come to Suna though, you might not have made the journey," said the cage. "I'm sure he would have been fine. I made it here after all and we're the same age," said the Tsuchikage as he walked into the booth. "Ah, Tsuchikage dono, what a pleasure to see you," said Hiruzen as he eyed Onoki's bodyguards, one a large man and the other a thin girl. "Is that your granddaughter Onoki? She's grown so much." "Yes, that is my little Kuretsuchi," Onoki responded as he lowered himself into his seat, rubbing his back as he did so before whispering, "Oh my back, all this bloody traveling." Hiruzen smirked before standing up to address the crowd with chakra-reinforced words. "Welcome esteemed guests and citizens of Konoha to the Chunin selection exams. I know you have all been waiting for this moment for a month, so here they are, the best of the best that these three villages have to offer. Now let the final portion of the exams begin," he yelled. The crowd cheered in excitement as the genin in the arena made their way to the observation decks. "The first fight is between Neji of the Hyuga clan and Tsuyoshi Nanami," said Genma. He watched as the two got into their respective fighting styles. He jumped out of the way and yelled, "Begin." You should surrender now, Iowa scum. You are from a village of failures, your fate is already decided. I will be victorious. Neji scoffed. Tsuyoshi just narrowed his eyes as he performed a series of hand seals. Doden. Rock spear jutsu, he called out, a spear of rock launched out of the ground towards Neji. He just activated his Byakugan and knocked the spear out of the air with a quick Juken strike. Neji scoffed before launching forward and engaging Tsuyoshi in taijutsu, or attempting to. Tsuyoshi launched himself backwards and out of Neji's reach as he started doing hand seals. Upon landing on the ground he yelled out, Doden, stone armor. The earth answered his call and coated him in a layer of thick stone. Are you really so arrogant to believe that reusing tricks from the preliminaries will work on me? Questioned Neji. I only have to hit you once, the new stuff can wait for a harder opponent. Grunted Tsuyoshi. That was a foolish move. Said Neji as he crouched down, you are within my range of divination. Juken. 8 trigrams 64 palms. He yelled as he suddenly started lashing out with his fingers. Each strike perfectly aimed and perfectly timed to hit cracks in Tsuyoshi's stone armor and the tenketsu beneath. Each strike caused pieces of stone and dirt to fly away, leaving vulnerable flesh. When he was done, Tsuyoshi was left without his armor but still able to control his chakra. He went through a series of hand seals before sinking into the ground. Neji just watched the ground with his Byakugan, waiting for his chance. He suddenly sent a chakra-laced palm strike into the dirt beneath him. Muffled screams were heard as the ground shook slightly. Neji started walking away until the ground ruptured and Tsuyoshi launched out, his eyes gleaming with madness. A large chakra burn was visible on his cheek and with a defiant laugh he started a series of hand seals. Doden. Earthen murder. He screamed as the earth started to heave and contort. Hands made of stone and dirt launched at Neji, who just looked on in shock. As the hands came close he hardened his expression before starting to spin. Kaden, he called as a dome of chakra blasted the hands away. Once they had stopped, Neji launched out of the chakra dome with glowing fingertips. He struck mercilessly at Tsuyoshi. Each strike landing with deadly efficiency, ending with an almost lethal strike to the lung. Tsuyoshi was unconscious before he hit the ground. The crowd exploded into cheers for Neji. The Hyuga section stared in shock. Neji had casually displayed 2 of their most prized techniques that he had taught himself, without so much as batting an eye. Maybe it's time I tell him about his father, thought Hiyashi. Winner Neji Hyuga, called Genma as Neji walked back to the competitor's booth. Tsuyoshi was taken out by medics. Will Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha please report to the arena? Yelled Genma. Naruto appeared in a blur of speed. Sasuke was nowhere to be seen. If Sasuke Uchiha hasn't arrived in 5 minutes he will be disqualified from the Chunin selection exams. Genma yelled when it became apparent Sasuke hadn't arrived yet. Naruto sat down under a tree as they waited. The crowd started to get restless until, with only 30 seconds left, Kakashi and Sasuke appeared in a body flicker. Hehe. Sorry, are we late? Kakashi asked. Genma glared at him. Kakashi scratched the back of his head before body flickering up to the stands. Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha vs Sasuke Uchiha of Konoha, begin. Yelled Genma as he jumped away. Naruto yawned as Sasuke glared at him. Give up, Dobi. With my Sharingan you have no hope of winning this match. Sasuke gloated. That is until Naruto appeared behind him and delivered a brutal kick to the side of his ribs. Maybe I should give up. Your Sharingan is so powerful I won't even land a hit on you. Naruto mocked. Oh wait. Sasuke glared at Naruto and activated his Sharingan. Foregoing any more insults, Sasuke launched himself at Naruto, hoping to catch him off guard. He thought he had gotten lucky when he felt his fist collide with something. Only to be disappointed to see a log where Naruto had been. One thing about those eyes of yours that I really hate. I can't use jutsu for fear you'll steal them. So I came up with something better to keep your Sharingan at bay. Naruto smirked before putting his hands in the ram seal. A ceiling tag appeared on the log that was now resting on the floor. The tag lit up with the kanji for wind before Sasuke was sent flying towards the wall of the arena. His back and arms littered with small cuts. Before he hit the wall, Sasuke spun around, landing with his feet on the wall, held there by chakra. Sasuke sped through a sequence of hand seals before breathing in deep. Kaden. Grand Fireball Jutsu, he called as a fireball easily the height of a man launched towards Naruto. Naruto sighed before performing the same hand seals, a fireball half the size of Sasuke's shot forwards twice as fast. Sasuke scoffed until the fireballs collided, canceling each other out. Sasuke's eyes narrowed before. Naruto smirked before putting his hands in the ram seal again. Sasuke jumped away from the wall in the nick of time as a seal burst to life, sending shards of stone flying in all directions. This is becoming boring, Dobi. Sasuke scoffed as he started charging his chakra. I agree, laughed Naruto. Chidori, screamed Sasuke as lightning burst to life in his palm. The sound of thousands of chirping birds filled the arena. Naruto watched him come. When Sasuke got close to Naruto, he was stopped dead. His body was being pushed back by a violent wind that appeared out of nowhere. The lightning chakra in his palm simply dissipated. How are you doing this, Dobi? You didn't use a jutsu or a seal. I demand you tell me. Screamed Sasuke. Naruto, Kakashi, Kurenai and the Hokage all sighed. If you really must know, Sasuke, my mastery of the wind element grants me almost perfect control of wind without the use of a jutsu. It is a bit chakra consuming, but I've never had a real problem with chakra. Naruto explained. Sasuke struggled but couldn't move at all. Now Sasuke, I suggest you surrender. There is a lightning-based seal on the ground beneath you. With a small bit of chakra you're going to find yourself on the receiving end of a serious shock. Naruto said. Sasuke looked down to see the seal glowing brightly. He struggled even more, pumping chakra to every part of his body he could think of. Sighing in defeat, he looked to the proctor. I surrender, he growled. The winner is Naruto Uzumaki, Genma called. Naruto dropped the wind, allowing Sasuke to move again. As soon as Naruto turned around to walk up towards the competitor's booth, Sasuke pulled a kunai from his pouch and launched it at the blonde-haired genin. Naruto heard it coming and stopped it dead with a burst of wind chakra, without pausing his stride. Sasuke found himself restrained by Anbu members and being whisked away. Such a waste of potential, sighed the Hokage up in the booth. The Tsuchikage just narrowed his eyes as he watched the replica Yondaime walk away. Naruto took his time walking up to the booth, making a quick stop at a food stall to eat a quick snack with Hinata. By the time he made it to the booth, Shikamaru had already given up on his match, even though he had all but won it. The fight was the same as canon, he used the whole left by Tsuyoshi. Tamari was not happy with the outcome. Even though she had won, it meant she had to endure the ridicule that this lazy brat had let her win because he saw it as too troublesome to continue. Winner Tamari of the Desert. Will Shino Aburame of Konoha and Daichi Takumaya of Iowa please report to the arena? Called Genma. The two genin faced off with each other before Genma called begin. You should give up now, I have you beaten. Said Daichi. Giving up before I have attempted to wipe the floor with you would be illogical. Replied Shino in a monotone. Yeah, you tell him, Shino. Yelled Naruto from the stands. Daichi just shrugged before reaching into the pouches at his sides. The mouths on his hands spat out lumps of spider-shaped clay which he threw towards Shino. Katsu. He screamed as they detonated. Shino though had already substituted. The following few minutes consisted of Shino dodging explosions and attempting to catch Daichi with his beetles. Neither tried to engage in taijutsu as they both knew it would be potential suicide getting that close to the other's abilities. Suddenly Shino stopped running and held his arms out. Daichi watched as beetles started crawling out from seemingly nowhere. Alarmed, he flared his chakra to clear away the genjutsu that had hidden them from his view. Shino had spent the entire time he was dodging laying down beetles under a genjutsu to hide them. You think this is supposed to scare me? Daichi screamed. You obviously haven't seen what happens to beetles in an explosion, he laughed as he started throwing lumps of clay into the encroaching mass of beetles. The resulting explosions wiped out a large chunk of Shino's colony. Proctor, my hive has succumbed to many casualties, it appears I will have to withdraw from this conflict. Shino said calmly, although inside he was seething. Winner Daichi, yelled Genma, we will allow Daichi a 15-minute break to rest before he fights with Gaara of the desert. Use these 15 minutes to get refreshments and use the restrooms provided. Please enjoy and we will be right back. Will Daichi, Takumaya and Gaara of the desert make their way to the arena floor? Yelled Genma as the 15-minute break ended. Daichi came down with a swagger in his step. His victory in his first fight had inflated his ego greatly. Gaara appeared in a swirl of sand standing across from him, his eyes shining with barely restrained bloodlust. Give up now, freak. When I'm done with you they'll be scraping you off the walls. Daichi said confidently. Mother wants your blood. Gaara said monotonously. Begin, yelled Genma as he jumped as far back as possible. As soon as Genma had said begin, the cork from the top of Gaara's gourd launched at Daichi's face. Ow, what the fuck? Exclaimed Daichi as he jumped backwards and put his hands inside the equipment pouches at his sides. Gaara watched impassively as Daichi pulled out spiders made of clay. Daichi threw the spiders and fed them chakra, causing them to grow and charge at Gaara. When they got close they jumped up and tried to latch onto Gaara, but his sand moved by itself and blocked the spiders and the following explosions. Gaara watched impassively as small clay birds continually slammed into his sand and detonated. His sand had formed a full dome around him now, he was unconcerned though. Gaara raised his hand and suddenly tendrils of sand launched forward attempting to catch Daichi. Each time a tendril got close he threw a clay figure at it to stop it in its tracks. He kept dodging and destroying the tendrils for a few minutes until, reaching into his pouches, he found that he was running low on clay. His eyes hardened as he pulled out a pre-made sculpture of a bird, but this one was different to the others. With a quick hand seal the bird grew large enough to hold him. Standing atop the bird he charged forward, intent on breaking through Gaara's shield while most of his sand was scattered around the arena thanks to his explosives. Daichi smirked in triumph. There was no way Gaara would be able to prevent being flattened by his bird. Daichi was sadly mistaken. By simply raising his hand again, the sand on the floor of the arena formed into a large hand which grabbed both Daichi and his bird out of the air. Daichi screamed in pain and outrage as the sand started crushing him. Reaching into his pouches he pulled out the rest of his clay and in a last-ditch effort made 2 centipedes which burrowed into the sand. He hoped they were far enough away to blow the sand away without injuring himself. Katsu! He screamed as the centipedes detonated. Sadly the centipedes had barely managed to dig into the sand and were trapped mere inches from Daichi's hands. The centipedes detonating did more than Daichi was bargaining for, but he would never know that. The exploding centipedes triggered the bird that was still struggling in the sand. Daichi's prediction at the start of the match had been close. Because the next 10 minutes were spent scraping him off of the walls. Winner Gaara of the desert. Genma said, slightly quieter than usual. Up in the crowd mothers covered their children's eyes, people turned away in disgust and no one clapped. Not a sound was heard throughout the arena as the few people still watching stared open-mouthed at the destruction that the genin had brought on himself. Oh Daichi, you idiot. Always biting off more than you could chew and then forgetting some of the most vital things. Onoki whispered quietly in the cage booth as he rested his head on his palm. In the stands Kadomari Wakashima watched in shock as her teammate had blown himself to smithereens. She knew he was as good as dead the second the sand had caught him. From what she had seen during the battle, Gaara's control would ensure his death, but to see him destroyed by his own explosives was almost too much to bear. He may have been an ass, but he had saved the team more times than she could count. Now one of her teammates was dead and the other had a permanently damaged chakra point in his head, rendering him almost insane. She hung her head in shame before walking out of the arena. The next few minutes the battlefield was fixed by a team of Chunin on standby, and Daichi had been cleaned up by the medics and a few helpful Chunin who looked a little green afterwards. Once that was all done, Genma stood in the middle of the field, and once he got the nod from the Chunins, the medics and the Hokage, he prepared to start the next match. Will Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha and Neji Hyuga of Konoha please come down to the arena floor? He yelled. A blur streaked across the floor as Naruto came to a stop in his position. Neji arrived a minute later, like Daichi, confident in his abilities, although he was foreseeing a better outcome. As I told the Iowa scum, surrender now, Uzumaki. Like Hinata-sama, you are a failure. Dead last in the academy and on a team of failures. Fate has already declared me the victor. Neji sneered. Trust me, if fate was real, this village would not be standing right now. Now let's see if you can touch me. Naruto said calmly, although he was steaming inside. This pathetic excuse for a human had hurt his Hinata-chan, and that was unforgivable. Anyone that hurt his precious people was going to get hurt, and badly. Begin, yelled Genma as he jumped back. Neji wasted no time as he launched forward, attempting to hit Naruto with a number of powerful Juken strikes. Naruto dodged each one with no trouble. Neji was begging to get frustrated. He had spent the entire month training his speed so that he could destroy Naruto in this fight, but Naruto dodged each strike. Come on, Neji. Hit me. Naruto yelled as he kept dodging. Neji screamed in rage as his Byakugan flared to life, finally taking it seriously. Neji lashed out with strike after strike, and not a single one connected. Naruto's laugh echoed around the arena as he kept dodging each and every attack that Neji attempted. Neji screamed in outrage as he attacked faster and faster until Naruto's laugh stopped. You know, I thought that since you had been trained by the same sensei as Lee that you would be as fast as him, but now I see you're truly pathetic. Now it's my turn, Naruto said as he stopped dodging and lashed out with a series of powerful punches aimed at vital points on Neji's chest. Neji was sent flying back as he felt his ribs crack and his internal organs bruise. He snapped out of his shock as he realized he could see Naruto. He found out why when a second later he received a brutal punch in his blind spot. Another cracking of bones. Getting up off of the ground where he had landed, Neji looked up at Naruto. How? He groaned. You idiot, I've trained with Hinata for months. I know all the strengths and weakness of the Byakugan. Now get up. I know your little obsession with fate and your victim syndrome will keep you going. Oh poor me, I have a seal on my head, so now I must show everyone that I'm so great, Naruto mocked. Neji gradually stood up and got into a fighting stance. You know nothing of the pain of living under a seal. Neji yelled, a stain on your very being that will never go away. Naruto just laughed, the laugh tinged with equal mocking and pain. It matter not, you are within my field of divination Juken, 8 trigrams 64 palms. Neji screamed as he launched forward to attack Naruto. Naruto watched as Neji got closer, the world moving in slow motion. Naruto unsealed one of his swords and used it to block all of Neji's attacks. Once Neji had called the final palm strike, Naruto kicked him hard in the chest, launching him back and into the wall of the arena. In the blink of an eye, Naruto was holding Neji to the wall with one arm while the other arm held his sword to Neji's throat. Yield, Neji Hyuga. Fate may have declared you the victor, but I just kicked fate's ass, and your own. Naruto said, laughing, but Neji looked into Naruto's eyes and saw a dark gleam that promised pain if he didn't back down, pain as retribution for how he had hurt Hinata. I surrender, Proctor, I have been beaten. Neji sighed in defeat. In an instant the pressure holding him to the wall vanished and he collapsed to the ground. Winner Naruto Uzumaki. Genma yelled. He was met with a stunned silence until up in the crowd's Kiba started clapping, then the other genin started clapping, then the Jonin senseis started clapping, and like a toppling domino the rest of the crowd followed. Clapping and screaming echoed around the entire arena as the crowd cheered for Naruto. Neji was being gently picked up by the medics when Naruto walked over to him and whispered in his ear. Neji, fate doesn't control what happens in our lives. I would have been dead a long time ago if it did. Never stop fighting for what you believe in. If you believe your clan can become united as Hinata does, then you should fight with her, not against her. Fight until you can bring about change, fight until you can't anymore, and then keep fighting. If you're determined enough, you could change your clan forever. And then Naruto walked off, content that he had avenged Hinata and sowed the seeds of change and salvation in Neji. Will Gaara of the desert and Temari of the desert please come down? Genma called. Proctor, I forfeit, yelled Temari from the stands, after seeing the carnage left by Gaara and Daichi from before. The crowd agreed with her decision. Okay, then we will have a half-hour break for Naruto to rest, and then we will have the final round of the Chunin selection exams. Genma yelled. The crowd cheered as they slowly dispersed to get whatever they wanted for the final round. Some were betting, some bought food, and others just got up to have a quick stretch. Naruto spent the half-hour sitting with Hinata as she helped ease his aching muscles. The devastating attacks he had landed on Neji had some backlash, and he was feeling it now that the adrenaline from the fight was gone. I think I'm going to have to go all out in this fight, Hinata Heim. Naruto whispered. Hinata knew what that meant. He would use any jutsu at his disposal and try his hardest to survive. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, I believe in you. Hinata whispered back. Thank you. Naruto whispered, his smile stretching from ear to ear. Will Naruto Uzumaki of Konoha and Gaara of the desert please report to the arena? Yelled Genma as he prepared for the final battle. Gaara and Naruto appeared at the same time, facing each other. Naruto with a face of grim determination and Gaara with bloodlust showing in every feature of his face. Mother will have your blood, Uzumaki, you will prove my existence. Gaara said with a maniacal glee. Tell your mother she can't have it, I'm using it. Naruto answered back. Begin, yelled Genma as he got out of the way. Gaara didn't waste any time, his sand exploding around him into tendrils that tried to grab Naruto. Naruto unsealed his sword, started swinging them at every single tendril that got too close. Time to go on the offensive. Shadow Clone Jutsu, yelled Naruto as 10 clones appeared. They started slashing through the sand, clearing a path between Naruto and Gaara. Gaara watched as his sand was shooting up all around him in random places as Naruto tried to outrun it. His attacks were met with the same sandy resistance each time. Naruto paused for a second and built up a load of wind chakra. In a burst of speed, Naruto appeared in front of Gaara and landed a heavy punch to his face, sending him flying back. Gaara laughed as he stood up from where he landed, a web of cracks across his face. A second shield of sand. Naruto mused. Kaden, mythical phoenix fire, Naruto yelled as he blasted out a series of small fireballs. Each fireball was blocked by the sand, snuffed out. Fine, if fire won't work, Fuden, beast wave palm. Naruto yelled as a blade of wind shot towards Gaara. The wind struck the sand shield and almost broke through, but it still didn't make it. I'm tired of this, mother will have your blood now. Gaara said as dome of sand surrounded him. Naruto could feel demonic chakra building up within the orb and knew had to stop it, but from what he'd seen his jutsu didn't have enough effect. He could try a Rasengan, but the sand would just fly around him and no real damage would occur to the dome. Fire didn't work before and neither did wind, what if I put them together? He thought as he jumped back and started gathering chakra. The crowd watched with bated breath as Naruto suddenly bolted upright and started doing hand seals. Shikuden. Piercing heat, he cried as a beam of light shot out of his hand. As it hit the sand dome, it slowly started turning it to glass. The sand shinobi present watched in shock as an extinct bloodline from their village was being used to break an unbreakable defense from their village. Once Naruto could see through the dome, he held his palm out in front of him and started creating a Rasengan. Now every shinobi in the audience was amazed. That jutsu was world famous, and for good reason. Naruto charged forward and slammed the fully formed Rasengan into the glass section of the dome and kept funneling more chakra into it as it shattered the glass and slammed into Gaara's stomach. Gaara started screaming as the pain from the Rasengan racked his body. For a second his sand held him in place as the orb of chakra ground further into his flesh, but the sand gave way and Gaara was sent flying out of the orb and into the wall of the arena. His stomach was riddled with chakra burns and cuts where the Rasengan had been grinding. What is this feeling? Is this pain, mother? Is that my blood? Mother, what is happening? Cried Gaara as he felt the wounds on his stomach. His head shot up and his eyes focused on Naruto. You did this, I will not let you erase my existence. Gaara screamed. As Gaara got up, his sand swirled around him, solidifying into the body of a tanuki from the waist up. His sand claw shot forward trying to catch Naruto, but he couldn't get a hold on him. Naruto dodged the sand arm and slashed it off with his sword. The arm just grew back almost instantly. Gaara started laughing maniacally. Mother will have your blood soon, screamed Gaara as a tail of sand formed behind him, his eyes now glowing with insanity. Time to step this up a notch, thought Naruto as he performed a quick set of hand seals and launched a fireball at Gaara. The fireball didn't do anything to the demonically powered genin, but it created a smokescreen. As the smoke was dying down, a sand arm shot out and grabbed Naruto, crushing him slowly. I've got you now, Uzumaki. Once I'm done with you, I'm going to kill everyone here. Laughed Gaara until the Naruto in his hand exploded into smoke. Rasengan, cried the real Naruto as he slammed the powerful technique into the base of Gaara's tail. For a second the sand seemed to start falling away until Gaara started doing some hand seals. Around the arena several hidden Suna and Oto shinobi looked up to the cage for the signal to attack, but it didn't come. Play possum jutsu, yelled Gaara as he suddenly slouched. Naruto watched in shock as all the sand in the arena swirled around Gaara, clumping around him, forming the giant shape of the Ikibi no Tanuki, Shukaku the Sand Spirit. Naruto looked up to the cage booth and saw the Hokage nod slightly to him. All around the arena Anbu were preparing to intervene. Do not interfere yet, yelled the Hokage. The crowd was shocked that the Hokage would order that. I'm free. Look, a snack, screamed the insane Tanuki. Naruto looked at the giant form of the Ikibi and saw Gaara sleeping on the forehead of the beast. So I gotta wake him up, thought Naruto. Come here, little shinobi, I'm hungry, called Shukaku as swung a giant hand made of sand down at Naruto. The hand was blown apart, revealing Naruto with a slight red glow around him holding his sword in the air. You wanna dance, Sandy? Then let's dance, yelled Naruto as he created an army of shadow clones. The clones started running up Shukaku's legs using wind chakra-powered slashes to distract Shukaku. While they were doing that, the real Naruto had pulled a strange-shaped kunai out of a seal in his sleeve. In the audience, a few more perceptive shinobi saw the three-pronged kunai held in Naruto's hand and gasped in shock. He wasn't about to do what they thought he was he? Their question was answered as Naruto got a clear shot straight up and launched the kunai up above Gaara, using wind chakra to propel it. Flying fire god, screamed Naruto, loud enough to be able to be heard over the fight. Huh, drilling wind bullet, yelled Shukaku as he slammed his fist onto his stomach and blasted a bullet of air at Naruto, but was shocked, as was everyone else, as Naruto disappeared in a flash of red and appeared above. Naruto screamed as he slammed his fist into Gaara's chin. Gaara's eyes snapped open and the sand started collapsing around the two of them. No, I just got out. No fair, screamed Shukaku as his consciousness was sucked back into his seal. Gaara plummeted to the ground. Naruto threw the kunai back down to the ground, faster than Gaara was falling. Arriving in a flash on the ground, Naruto looked up and caught Gaara before he could slam into the ground. Why? How? Groaned Gaara. I saved you because we are alike. Both children of cages resigned to the life of a monster, because of the demons we contain. I was hated like you, and would have ended up like you if it hadn't been for a few precious people that saw me for who I was and not what I held. I grew strong because I vowed to protect them, and they love this village, so I protect this village even if they want me dead. True strength doesn't come from confirming your existence or killing. Strength comes from protecting those precious to you. Naruto explained as he placed Gaara down on the ground. Gaara looked confused, but the words had seemed to have taken hold. He smiled before slouching and beckoning to Genma. Genma prepared to call the fight in Naruto's favor when he was beaten to it by the Hokage himself. The winner of the Chunin selection exam's final portion. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. He yelled as the crowd erupted into cheers and cries for forgiveness. Is that enough evidence for you, Onoki? The Kazekage said out of nowhere. Yes, it is. Keep up your end of the bargain, Snake, Onoki replied. A genjutsu suddenly dropped on the cheering crowd, causing the civilians to lose consciousness and some of the weaker ninja as well. Hiruzen found himself dragged up to the roof by the Kazekage as Onoki floated out over the walls of Konoha. Waiting for him was an army of shinobi, the likes of which hadn't been seen since the last great ninja war.